I love you, bitch.
Oh my god.
I ain't gonna never stop loving you, bitch.
Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, hello. If you're returning, welcome back. Thank you so much for sticking around. I really appreciate it. So today's video is the last in my 3-part series about going to college, studying abroad, and then moving to Denver after I graduated college. And so this video is about moving to Denver. And it's a little bit different of a video than the other ones, I feel like, because I'm still adjusting. And I'm still learning. And I feel like a lot of my other videos were things in hindsight because they happened like years ago. But I'm still actively learning how to do this whole living on my own adulting thing. And yeah, but I figured I would just talk about it anyway, because why not? I get a lot of questions about it. So if you don't know this about me, I am 24 years old and I graduated college last year. I graduated college May 4th, 2019, and I was in Denver and working on June 13th, 2019. So within the span of like a month and a half, my life drastically changed. And it was a lot to handle. And it was a lot to handle mentally. But I did it. And yeah, so I just kind of want to talk about that today, like what I did and how I got here. I do want to preface this by saying, like I kind of mentioned and hinted at in my Giving Tree haul, I am an extremely fortunate kid. My family is by no means loaded. I'm just an only child, and my parents are the best. And so I want to like preface this whole story by saying I did not pay for any of my moving expenses, and my dad did. And my dad had been stockpiling like all the things I needed to furnish an apartment for like a year before I even graduated. So I had all of that, and he paid for everything. And I know that moving, like one of the biggest burdens is the financial aspect of it. So I'm not here to give advice on that because I didn't have to experience that and I didn't have to deal with that. And I'm extremely fortunate to have just been able to go, you know? And so I just wanted to preface it with that because I feel like it wouldn't have been fair if I just kind of like went on like I just did it all by myself, because that is not the case at all. And it's still not the case. In fact, me and Mario, we were planning on moving into like our own place next year, but we realized that like we just don't have the funds right now to fund a move. And so he's just going to move in here with me, and we're going to cohabit my place, and then hopefully aim to get a new place in 2022. But yeah, so I understand the financial burdens of moving, and I understand how fortunate and privileged I am to have not had to deal with that and just to have family or parents who are just like, Meg, go. And yeah, so I just want to preface it with that because I felt like it wouldn't have been fair if I didn't. So yeah, let's just get into it other than that. So yeah, I graduated May 4th, 2019, and then, like I said, middle of June, I was already in Denver and working. So I started applying for jobs in around February of 2019, and I applied for anything and everything. Not anything, but I applied for probably like over 100 jobs. And that's my first piece of advice to any almost college graduate who's applying for jobs, is just apply. Even if you don't think you're qualified, even if you don't think you're going to get it, just apply, because you never know. And a lot of times you're just going to be throwing your name into a black hole and you're probably never going to hear anything. But sometimes you'll get bites, like I did. And so what happened was I applied for a job in Chicago and I applied for a job out here. And I got an interview for the one in Chicago, and I did a phone interview, and then they wanted to interview me in person. So we scheduled that after I graduated because it was like around that time. And then I got interest for a job out here in Denver. And so, but since it was such a like big trip, like Chicago is closer to where I'm from, but Denver is a haul. And so since I was already traveling that far, I decided to look for more jobs in Denver. And so I ended up applying for the job that I now work at. And I'm really happy I did because like the job that I initially got the interview for out here was a train wreck. But I'm getting ahead of myself. So basically I graduated and then the next 2 weeks I spent traveling for interviews. Literally the Monday or Tuesday after I graduated, I flew to Chicago and I stayed there for a week to have an interview for the job that I had there. It was a really cool job. And then I flew back and I was in town for about 24 hours and then I flew out to Denver. And Denver was a lot easier to plan because I have family out here. So I was able to stay with them, which was really nice. But before I even left Denver, I got offered the job that I now work at and I accepted it. I knew I was going to get, well, I didn't know, but I had a very strong feeling that I was going to get offered the job in Chicago as well. But before that even happened, I just kind of did like pros and cons and I figured I would rather live in Denver than I would in Chicago. And I knew that because I had never been to Denver before this, ever. And what got me applying out here was because I had some friends from college and I had family. But I had never been in Denver before, but I felt safer walking around by myself in Denver, a city I've never visited before, than I did in Chicago, a city I'd been to like a lot of times. And the weather and the atmosphere out here just cannot be beat. And so I was like, fuck it, I'm taking the job here. And yeah, and I don't regret that at all. I love Denver and I don't foresee myself leaving. And I got offered the job before I even left Denver. And then, and I took it. And so then I had about 3 weeks to go home and pack and move. And so that really kind of just, it was very stressful. I'm not gonna lie. I still had fun. I made it a point to have fun before I left with my friends. But yeah, so then my dad and we packed up a moving truck and we drove to Denver and we moved in. And there were a lot of kinks in the moving process, but that doesn't matter because I'm here. And I started my job. And that's pretty much all there is to like that story. I'm just gonna talk about like the experience as a whole, I guess. That's literally all I put in my outline was just those things. And then what else did I, and then I put a bullet point. Oh, and then after my dad moved me in, my mom came and visited for like 2 weeks after, because my parents got divorced while I was in college. I haven't talked about that, but my parents got divorced when I was in college. And so my dad moved me out here but they still get along. And then my mom came and visited 2 weeks after. Yeah. But anyways, so those are like literally all the bullet points that I had like in my script thing, and then I just put have learned a lot and experienced a lot, elaborate. So that's what I'm gonna do. Living on your own as a 22-year-old, because I was 22 when I moved out here. Living on your own as a 22-year-old person is one of the most overwhelming experiences ever, especially when you've never done it before. Because I had only lived at my house or with my parents and in London, but it's a feeling and an experience like I can't really explain, and I honestly still don't really know how to reflect on it because I'm still experiencing it because I still only am 24, so it's weird. And going from being a college student directly to being a working professional is weird. And do I kind of wish I would have had like a little bit of buffer time in between college and moving? Yes. But I don't really regret it. I think it would have been nice to have like some downtime because it was very, very overwhelming at first. And yeah. But this past year and a half has been one of the biggest learning experiences in my entire life. And I've learned a lot about myself, and I've learned a lot about my job. I've learned a lot more about graphic design in the last year and a half than I did in my entire 5 years of school, and I mean that. And my professors even said that was going to happen, so I'm not surprised. But yeah, like on a personal level, like when I moved out here, that's when I really started dating. I dated like 2 people back at home, but when I moved out here, I dated a lot. And that's how I met people, and that's how I like saw Denver. And honestly, like a couple of the people that I went on dates with, like it didn't work out, obviously, but like we are like they're really good friends. And so yeah, and I went through a lot mentally with that, and that was on my own. That was my own, like, bringing that upon myself. Like, when you start dating, you open yourself up for that. But I really learned a lot about myself in a lot of different ways in that period. I dated really heavily for like 6 months. And yeah, and then I kind of slowed down with somebody, and that ended just fucking terribly. And then Mario was my first actual date after that happened, and here we are. Like, you learn a lot about yourself in these different seasons of your life, I feel like, but I have never learned more about myself and also been as confused about myself simultaneously as I have been living in Denver. And I love Denver, and I don't, like I said, I don't foresee myself leaving Denver, but like just being on my own, being in charge of my life and funding my life is a new thing for me. And I know that sounds really privileged, but it's just the truth. I think a big part of it is like, and this is getting kind of like philosophical, I guess, but is just the culture that we live in, and like constantly feeling like you have to be making more money and you have to be just striving to do more. Was something that is something that I still kind of struggle with, to be completely honest. But I'm now learning how to actually set a real budget. I use YNAB, by the way. It's the shit. If you need a budget, use YNAB. YNAB works so well. I just started using it. It's amazing. I love it already. But I'm just starting to learn, like, I feel like I sound like such a kid, because I am still such a kid. And that's like my biggest piece of advice from this video is like, if you are in your early 20s and you are living on your own, working in a professional career, don't be too hard on yourself, and don't forget that you still are like a 22, 23, 24-year-old person. Like, you're a kid. I'm a kid. And just because I have a professional job and a salary and a 401k and whatever doesn't mean I'm not 24 years old and I'm still trying to figure it out. And and that's like a big reason I started therapy, to be honest, was because I lost that, and I just never felt like I was doing good enough, when really what I did is kind of amazing. And I've never said that out loud before, but being able to get a job directly after college is an astonishing thing. It doesn't happen very often, and I'm very grateful that it happened to me. And I found out that I was like one of like hundreds of people that they interviewed for this position, so that meant a lot as well that they chose me. But yeah, so I felt like that was just rambling, but I want to be honest about me living here, because it's not all rainbows and unicorns. Do I love it? Yeah. But like, it's not rainbows and unicorns, and it's hard and it's stressful, but it's worth it, and it's satisfying when things work out, you know? And yeah, so I can't knock it too much. I did, again, come up with some words of wisdom just that I have thought of since moving and since living here. One of them is don't overpack when you're moving, because my dad and I wound up taking a shit ton of stuff to Goodwill. Just pack stuff that really matters to you, and figure out, like, weigh the options of, like, moving it or just buying it when you get here, or get to where you're moving. Another part of my stress from living on my own, obviously, is finances. I feel like that's everybody's stress when they live on their own. And a big part of that is because I thought I did enough research into how much I would actually be getting paid after taxes, but I didn't. And so, like, the general rule of, like, your rent or mortgage or whatever being 30% of your income, my rent is literally 50% of my income. And that is stressful. I joke with Mario all the time. I'm like, I love you and I'm so excited to just like live with you and like start this part of our relationship. But also, I am very excited to split rent because Denver is one of the most expensive cities to live in right now. So that doesn't help anything either. But just that is a tangent, but just saying, make sure you are accurately estimating how much you are actually going to get paid when you are starting to figure out how much you can afford in rent, because that's where I screwed myself. So, and I didn't screw myself. Like I can afford my rent, but it's just tighter than I would like it to be. Also, if you have family where you are moving, take advantage of that, because my family that lives here, they're a little bit far up, so they're like 30 minutes away from where I work. But I kind of wish I would have just stayed with them for like a couple weeks and actually toured apartments before I moved, because I just like looked at apartments and like got one when I was still at home. And I like my apartment, like it's fine, it gets the job done, but I definitely think I could have gotten a better location for what I pay. And just a better amenities and stuff for what I pay, if I would have taken the time to actually like tour places before I moved. And kind of going off of like, if you're young and going through this, if you're like a college graduate and going through this, my piece of advice, and this is from my dad, is focus on where you want to live and find a job there. Like, don't follow the job, follow where you want to live, because there's more jobs. It's okay if your first job out of college is not going to be your forever job. I know this job that I work in right now is not going to be my forever job, and that's okay. And my boss, like, recognizes that too. It's okay. But I love living in Denver. I wanted to live in Denver, and that's why I took this job. I wanted to live in Denver more than I wanted to live in Chicago, and I don't regret moving here for a second. It's been a very weird year and a half. Personally, professionally, everything. Like, it's just been very weird. Forget fucking COVID. That just added a whole other level of shitstorm onto everything. But just in terms of moving, hopping into a job, and living on my own, all in the span of a month, it was a lot to handle. And it's a lot to handle for anybody. And so for anybody going through the same thing as me, just take it one day at a time, do your best, and that's all you can do. And especially if you're my age, remember, you are young. You are still a kid. There are still people in college that are the same age as you, and you are starting your life. And yeah, and I need to remember to tell myself that more. But that's all I have for this video. I know it wasn't as informative probably because I'm still experiencing it and I'm still learning, but nevertheless, I hope you enjoyed it. If you want more of me, all my links will be down below. The links to my Patreon, my Etsy /merch store, my Discord, which is amazing, and yeah, and all my social links will be down there too. Yeah, if you guys want to talk, just leave a comment down below. And if you haven't subscribed yet, subscribe. If you haven't seen the rest of this series, go check that out. And yeah, I will see you in the next one. Thank you so much for watching. I love you. Stay kind to yourself, and bye. Mwah.